The funny thing is you can't imagine it because of how hard you went. I can imagine it because I gave you 30 seconds to rest.
Water break.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, no offense to CrossFitters out there. I've seen you take 30 seconds to rest before. Like,
Yeah, that quick chalk that you took was not 10 seconds.
yeah, when you're late into a real dirty muscle overload long piece, 30 seconds, please.
Yeah.
Good morning, Misfits. You are tuning into another episode of the Misfit Podcast. Full Goon Squad back in the house. I survived COVID. Hunter survived dysentery. Sherp took off his fancy suit and got back in his own fucking seat over there in the corner. Sherp's in his corner with his Steve Prefontaine. We are in, I mean, technically we get the, future past thing a little confused. We're in week 5 of Comp Block 2, correct?
Taper week. 6, I think.
6.
This will drop in week 7. So this gets muddied when you're a remote coach and you're on a different week with different athletes, depending on what their peaking schedule is. I'm in week 1 of marathon prep. I went out and spent all my money on a watch that did not make me any faster.
That's weird. I really thought that watch was aerodynamic.
I'd fucking return that thing right away.
I did see the watch. I might have
You
noticed
didn't get the new shoe. You didn't get the new nanos. That's your problem.
Fuck, I knew it.
Yeah.
I think those are for running.
And I watched a video, and apparently I need like 4 different pairs of shoes.
Right? That
You can only put a certain amount of miles in on a pair of running shoes.
The Nano
I thought you were supposed to keep them. I thought you were supposed to keep them for like 6 years until the foam just completely disintegrated.
See your feet to the bottom.
So I got to wait until Joel has
That's
another discount code on Float Ride 3, and it's 8 cents for another pair of Reeboks. I'm pumped for that.
8 cents.
I'll get a little dough back on my watch.
Now we're on sale, 99%.
So
maybe at a semifinal they'll give you a coupon for like $10 off a purchase of
Only if you qualify for the
$400 or
games,
more.
though.
Yeah.
Yes. If you would like to sponsor us. I think we're all wearing different shoes right now. I'm wearing Pharrell shoes. He's wearing Vans. You're wearing Rads.
Rads.
Ain't nobody on here got anything bad to say about Vans, so if you're listening.
Although I somehow, well, according to my wife, it's impossible that I didn't have running shoes at home because I have so many pairs of shoes.
Well,
What do you know?
I did not have running shoes
grow up, Maya.
for day
I know you're
one.
listening to this.
And I thought, yeah, she definitely is.
Huge fan.
Huge
Misfit
CrossFit
Athletics
fan.
podcast fan.
I was like, what's my best choice here? Is it nanos? Is it some random, like, quote unquote, like tennis shoe? Is it the ultra range because they got a little cush? I can tell you right now, don't run in those.
No.
Don't go do a maffetone session.
There are people
you
who
not only get blisters, you lose feeling in certain parts of your feet. It's not a... Honestly, I knew when I put them on because the toe box is a little bit smaller that it was going to be a bad idea. But we'll get to the stubbornness next with my watch story.
Got a
So
small toe box.
so fuck off. So on the Garmin watch, you can like plan your workout out like on your phone and then send it there and just hit start. You can choose target heart. You can choose what metric it follows.
Yeah.
So you choose I chose custom heart rate, and my maffetone is 144 now. Graduated up to 144 from 145.
Happy birthday.
And I chose my range as 144 to 144. And
Yikes.
in my headphones,
Lots of wiggle room.
for 6 miles straight,
Can't believe you did that.
whistle down tone. 143, you are low. You're at a 143.
You're
Regular
gonna die.
whistle. You're back in zone. 144. Boop, boop. High whistle. You are high. You're 145, 146 for an hour straight.
Why didn't you just like
I'm surprised
pause
you
and
didn't
change it?
throw your
I
headphones on the
can't-
side of the
He's
road.
I can't do that.
He's juggernaut. He already started.
Like if I was
Can't waste
running
3
and my
minutes.
shoelaces came untied, I would be upset to the point where I think I might just run and see if my shoe falls off before I stop and do that. The only asterisk here is I had
If
to
you're missing a
pee
sock.
at the beginning of a 90-minute math once, and I made it 75 minutes with like, I was in pain and I paused my watch and ran into the woods and took a piss.
Just run in reverse, they're peeing on the
and
road.
came back out.
It could be worse. You could have had to poop.
Yes, that's true. We can't get back into the poop story.
Way worse.
You can't do it. You're not trying to pick up any ladies with your
pickup
poop.
line.
Speak for yourself.
Yeah. You don't know.
All
his
right,
track
ladies,
record.
listen up.
So if you find yourself with a new Garmin watch and you think you can set your range to 1 and
Did
you're
you
going to keep your
intentionally
head...
set it to just that?
Well, I didn't realize it was going to do that the whole time.
Yeah,
I didn't think it was going to like whistle at me the entire time. I was like,
Can
why
you
do I need to set a
imagine an hour
range?
of that?
I'm going to go run at a 144. Now, fast forward to my most recent sessions and having it tell you when you're at like a 140 or a 148 is nice.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to stare at your watch the whole time. You can kind of get in the zone and you stay at the heart rate you're supposed to much easier because you're not turning your wrist the whole time.
You can do that on an Apple Watch.
So it is a nice feature, but do not set it to.
Fit IV Run works really well.
So I am not using the Apple Watch because if I want to go run like 10 miles, I have to like pull it off the charger and hope it lasts. The battery when you're using GPS, heart rate, and music is horrendous. Like it's
Even just the
Come
activity.
on, Tim Apple.
yeah, it's so bad.
Oh.
So I got me a new watch and I paid extra because the other one had a red button on it and I thought it was ugly. So I was texting with Xander. I was like, which one of these watches is good? And he sends me and I was like, why does it have a red button on it? And he goes, okay, well then get this one. And it was like $200 or $300 more. And I was like, well, fuck.
That's definitely worth it. I agree.
It is what it is. So yeah, we are cruising through. People are in much different spots right now. Some people are tapering down. People on the blog are sort of in that middle point right now, beginning to sort of taper back down depending on when they started that schedule. And we are officially, when this airs, in week 1 of semifinals, which, I mean, doesn't matter what time of year it is. It's crazy. This thing is happening. And we got the 2 announcements from CrossFit. We got the 2014 legless event. Kind of an iconic, I feel like I understood why they chose it. It's very much an iconic moment, especially with the way Easy was jumping to 12 feet.
That was wild.
Doing 2 pulls and
pull
Did he even
with
pull
one
it? I thought
arm,
he just
reach
jumped
with
and
the
hit the
other.
beam.
he just jumped and hit the beam every time. I do want to talk about that workout though, because it's not even remotely the same workout as it was back then. Back then, the idea of 400 meters of running and 10 legless was like, holy shit. Like, this is kind of crazy. And you saw most athletes out there running at a speed that allowed them to keep going up the rope. Probably for men, I remember that sort of when the workout changed was rounds like 5 or 6, somewhere in that range. That's when you started to see, okay, so this, whatever, we're in the East, Spencer Hendel is still sprinting, Cody's still sprinting and then getting no reps 6 or 7 times.
Not enough chalk dust.
Not enough chalk dust. Now, this workout, especially on the men's side, is going to be really fun to watch.
10 legless climbs for time.
Yeah. I mean,
So
people are going to be
fast.
running extremely hard, and I guarantee the entire field and every workout is going to start this workout almost exactly the same. And you don't get to see that very often in CrossFit.
No, you also don't get to see a race too where it's just because there's so little wiggle room to separate yourself in this, people are going to be taking a lot of risks. So to me, it's a very exciting event because of the risk you have to take, because if you play this one safe, it's not like the first time they showed up, which was, 14 following the 2013 games where they had the thruster rope climb thing out in the cage out in the tennis stadium. That's kind of what I can recall as like the real first time that movement became like a big highlighted item, and it was 10 rope climbs. And that year at the games, people were struggling mightily at it. And then they put it in regionals the following year, and the field was very diverse. I would imagine, outside of Easy's probably, I think like 2.5 or 3 minute time that he had, everybody else is in that like 3.5, 4. There was quite a bit of separation between the like outlier and the average.
I don't
think it's gonna be a lot
remember, but I
tighter
honestly
now.
think he was like 3 and change.
I think it's a little over 3, but I'm saying like now, instead of him being the outlier, that's
everyone.
where everyone's going to live. So it's going to be a very fun way to kick off, an event that way. Having people have to sprint through that is going to be very exciting.
For especially those last heats of the semifinal, it's going to be a matter of like you hesitate for a second. It's like 3 or 4 places.
It's also a small guy and a tall guy workout, which is super fun. Because if you're small run all day, you're going to fly up that rope. Typically, obviously, I'm generalizing right now. And then the athletes who, we find a lot of the taller CrossFit athletes to have a bit more of that endurance vibe to them. And their range of motion is going to be significantly shorter on those rope climbs. And normally we do find that taller, leaner athlete finds a way into CrossFit because they do have a bit more of that sort of endurance vibe. So I'm pretty excited about that. I think it's going to be fun. And I'm also biased because it's a really good workout.
Well, like the athleticism factor in this workout is what's I think unique about it as opposed to some of the other CrossFit workouts where like maybe you're really good at inside the box type of stuff. This is both feels like it's inside the box and outside the box in terms of like your traditional like 21-15-9, but also potentially you are going to be going to the next stage of competition, which is the games where they throw anything and everything at you and you have to show a little bit of athleticism in here. So I without having predictions for who's going to do the best, like you think of the athletes that come into CrossFit after playing a explosive sport like basketball or football or having a track background where they're doing things like field events, you might see them do a little bit better because there's that athleticism factor to it versus the...
Does Holly still fly up that rope?
Yes, he does.
Him and Luca, that's going to be
a good battle.
I hope they're side by side.
I'm sure they're already talking shit about it. Guaranteed they already are.
When 333. Yeah. So you think about now a CrossFitter running a 400 and doing 10 legless. You're looking more in the 3-minute range in my mind.
Probably see some sub 3 times
somewhere in that range. Because I remember him flying up, but he was methodical about his later runs going through that. We were. Well, you know what? I'm gonna keep some things close to the vest as we go through this podcast. We're getting too close. We're getting a little too close. The Barbell Complex. We got 3 cleans into 2 front squats into 1 jerk. The first thing that's popping into my mind is people just ecstatic that they've flown through the most beautiful, the best 3 touch and go cleans I've ever done. Crush 2 front squats. You missed the jerk. There's going to be some heartbreak out on those floors because that part of the movement it shows up the least in our sport. Therefore, the least technically sound movement that you're going to get from a lot of athletes. And it is in the most fatigued portion.
Yeah, athletes are going to be, their lower bodies are going to be smoked.
Yeah, you're going to have to move the way you're supposed to move, and the mind is going to try to trick you into doing something.
You know what's great though? We've been doing all those front squats with split jerks, following it in the phase leading up to it. That's kind of a nice feature in this whole thing is that you've had the opportunity to practice if you've been following along with us.
What was the complex last week?
I think wasn't it 3? Wasn't it 1 front squat, 1 split jerk?
No, the clean complex.
Oh,
it was like clean jerk, squat, clean jerk, hang squat, clean jerk. So you've been through some time under tension, let's say.
Easy. Sounds easy.
It's weird I didn't do that one.
Yeah, weird, man.
Have a little fun with it. Prediction of the heaviest women's and men's weights across all.
That complex?
That complex.
Guy gets to do it, so like what, 400?
We're going to have to see some
upper
some
threes.
Men are going to be upper 3s.
I mean, he did the Bella Complex with 366.
Can we get rid of the outlier?
Like
I thought we were picking the best.
I feel like in the
the best person that's going to be close to someone else.
Fair. In like the 335 range, right? If you're going to be like top 10 men in the world, got to be well over.
I thought you meant top 10. I was like, damn, if you got to be top 10 with a 335.
No, like across all like the fitted, or like let's say top 5 at the game spot at the event.
Gotta be over
315.
Oh, yeah, in that range. Yeah.
Anthony Davis up there too, probably moving some serious weight.
I think 340 from a non-outlier would be insane.
It would be
like an Adler or something like that.
Yeah. Women.
Man, I think that's going to be. I think that might.
Didn't Tia hit 255 of the Bella Complex?
I was going to say like 230 to 240.
Yeah.
I think proportionally maybe a little bit heavier than the men.
Yeah, but I think that's the outlier as well.
You think so? Closer to like 230.
I think 230, 235 will be the non-outlier heaviest one.
Yeah.
I think.
It's pretty heavy.
That's pretty heavy. Yeah.
I don't know if I could do
that.
Want
to try that?
Yeah, no.
Although we are typically surprised by, we've talked about this a ton, when you're programming for turtles, rabbits, men, women, we are typically blown away by the concept of a woman slanging 90%, 85%, that sort of thing, versus a power athlete male really struggling with that. And what I love about this complex is the idea that there's a technical element and there is a fitness element involved with this, where, like, you know, spray and pray, hump and dump, whatever you want to call it. Like,
it's a kid show. It's a kid show.
Like,
God.
Like,
Yeah,
I don't want to see that.
You can't just have
you
gorilla
can't.
strength.
Well, there are so many people who would think they're like, oh, I'm home free. I've gotten through the 3 really heavy cleans and I'm going to do 2 shitty lazy front squats. And then, oh, whoops, my hands are touching the front of my chest to try to put the bar over my head.
Yeah.
I do love the fact that there's almost like, got through the cleans and then lazy front squats to follow it. And then what happens?
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because how hard the movement is in reverse order.
Yeah,
which is nice. Little bit deceiving, and we'll keep the coaching tips close to the vest for that as well.
Spray and pray. You heard it here first.
Let's run through Syndicate Crown. Ted, throw those babies up. Let's take a peek at these just for fun. We'll do a little team critique here. So event 1, we've covered the complex.
Yep.
Event 2 for time, 30 cal echo bike, tank push 75 feet, 30 double dumbbell burpee deadlifts. Ugh. Whoa, Ted's getting crazy over there. Another tank push, 20 cal echo bike, tank push, double dumbbell hang snatches, tank push, echo bike again, devil's press. We go 30 20 10 on the echo bike, 30 20 10 on the dumbbell movements. This is a gnarly workout. This is like just right gas.
Just screams gas tank for sure.
There's nothing else involved with this entire workout, because for this caliber of athlete, when you're looking at that weight within those movements and in those rep ranges, if you want to hang, you're not fucking around at any point during this at all. I think the sort of unknown here is the effect of the tank push. You know, what do we think that's going to do to somebody? So I don't know what the resistance level is there, but we all know with the sled, intensity is freedom, but intensity is only freedom within the moment. So you push that sled and you feel fantastic and it's great, and then you are lit up for the dumbbell movements.
What a trap to start to. 30 cals on the bike right into a sled push. You could very easily.
At least it's echo though.
Yeah,
you can go at a pretty decent clip on the echo and not ruin your day.
I mean, how many people are just going to push that bike so hard and then get to that sled and go, fuck?
I don't think. I think they'll push someone will push the bike hard, push the sled fast, and then just how slow those burpee deadlifts are, like, that's just like one speed sort of thing. And for some people, that speed is gonna be
not fast,
not very fast. But yeah, you can see how that's gonna go on the floor. Like, push the sled to your dumbbells, push the sled back to your bike.
I mean,
I like this workout.
I feel like we've written maybe that workout exactly.
Event 3, we had the rope climbs. Now we got 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, ski erg, cals, wall balls, and GHD sit-ups. This is long, and this is muscle endurance for sure. This is the kind of workout that you really need to settle into. Like, really need to settle into, because the fatigue of climbing, I would say somewhere in the 30 range, this workout's going to start to percolate a little bit, and you've got more work left, much more work left.
You finish the round of 30, you're not even halfway done.
Right. Yeah. You're not even close to halfway done.
And that handstand walk is
true. Yeah, I didn't say that. After every round, so you go 10, 10, 10, 80-foot handstand walk, has to be done in 40-foot unbroken sections with the fatigue of the ski erg and the wall ball. Midline a little taxed.
One of those ones that doesn't get finished by a lot of people.
25 minutes, I think it does, but
150 cals, like
7
minutes,
12 minutes.
Wall ball. Oh no, people will finish that. Some people won't, but
also curious to see if the handstand walk is just straight up 40-foot, like flat. I mean, I don't know if they're including details like over a ramp or something. It should be
40-foot flat. It would be a circus show.
Oh, I agree. I'm just saying, I'm curious to see if that's a wrinkle that hasn't been announced yet, but.
Yeah, I mean, this is the kind of workout that we would write. This would be Hunter if it was ascending rep scheme.
Yep.
I definitely wouldn't like this.
You're welcome.
You can usually smell whose stench is on it. We have Jackie Style is the name of this workout. This is a real doozy. 1K row, 50 thrusters, empty bar, 60 chest to bar, 50 thrusters, 1K row.
I'm so happy they end on a row. Makes me so happy.
Yeah.
Oh,
See 2 people get on the rower at the same
That's
time.
what I'm talking about. I want to see that hands in the air at the end, selling your soul. Just a nice iteration.
what do you guys think of that?
Which one? This one?
Yeah.
Good test.
It's a great test.
See how folks decide to split up their chest to bar pull-ups.
Yeah, the
Anybody
elite.
gonna split that barbell up? First one? Bar? I mean, everybody knows how it feels up to the literally halfway through that workout.
Yeah, I mean, it's a 5 to get to 30 chest to bar pull-ups. Probably looking somewhere in the mid 5s, and then guess what? You're halfway.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I think there'll be athletes that hang on for that first set of 50 thrusters unbroken. I don't know if that's necessary.
It's not necessary.
At all.
No, I think standing around on thrusters controlled makes a whole lot more sense than standing around on chest to bar because you can't do them anymore because of the first 2 movements.
Yeah. And I can't wait for the rowing race to end that workout. That is going to be exciting to watch.
Yep. Indie Event 6, the final King Kong 2.0, 3 rounds, 8 ring muscle ups, 6 deficit handstand push-ups, 9 and 6 inches. That's enough with the muscle ups in there first. 4 sandbag to shoulder with the 200, and then a 1K row apparently. Or
2 snatches, 205, 145.
Hey!
2 snatches at 205, 145. I'm intrigued by the weight of the 864 and the not weight of I was being figurative and now I'm being literal with the 205 there.
I mean, those are probably going to be short bars, so it's probably going to feel like 225.
True. That helps a little bit. That helps a little bit for sure.
Yeah, it's an interesting final.
Hello, Instagram?
Obviously kind of split between small athlete to big athlete, but I think the muscle up and handstand push up numbers are low enough that
You survive as a big.
as long as you can do them, as long as you don't get totally stuck.
I envision some funky things happening on the third set of 6
I'm pretty curious.
Push-ups.
I'm assuming the sandbag to shoulder is like you got to shoulder it, stand it up. It's not like throw it over the shoulder.
Right.
People are going to snap
I think the standard's too blurry when you go over shoulder.
Yeah, it should be stand the bag up and then drop it by your feet.
Sandbag bag to shoulder.
Sandbag bag. I like it.
Sandbag bag.
I mean, good events. I'd have to put them down on paper and do a little bit of math to give my overall opinion on it. Fairly balanced. I do see a touch of like a power athlete bias in there, but we have that longer muscle endurance workout, which is a power athlete's nightmare. So that could be the equalizer.
Yes, that's probably the only thing that's missing here. I mean, I guess it is a long workout, but like having, the CrossFit Games typically throws athletes into something that's going to be beyond.
I don't know that I'd say as much power athlete as just like physically larger athlete.
Sure. Yep.
Just with the machines, the pushing, the sled work, the machines. But like Jackie's pretty balanced. Those 1Ks aren't. The second 1K will be miserable, but nobody's
Jackie becomes balanced.
Yeah.
As you keep going,
Get
back on the rower.
There's no like real running in this semifinal. There's the shuttle run between the rope and your next rope, but like not really. You know what I mean? Like
as a non-runner, I'm down with some 170-foot shuttles. I'll just throw that out there.
I mean, that's a bit intriguing there. I don't know how long it's been since we had like a semifinal without devoid completely of running. And I'm not counting that running in the rope climb workout to count, but just how that will play out. And how these athletes, I think it's really interesting.
Obviously, venue comes into play as well. Venue and sponsors. Are you going to get that many whatever runners, assault runners, whatever out there? Is that something that was provided and possible for you? And then the actual venue itself, can they leave and run a lap around it, indoor, outdoor, that sort of vibe? So, but yeah, I mean, I think there are a lot of athletes who work so hard on their engine prowess that maybe aren't huge that would like the opportunity to go, trot.
Can we run some, please?
Yeah. So the main topic for today, what I wanted to discuss is really what's top of mind for us right now as coaches, and something that we continue to get questions in Discord on. And then I've, gotten some questions about strategy via email for this, but the idea of sort of the difference between what training should look like in the off season. And then we've gone into a bit of what it's like to ramp up. And I think it's really important to spend the time talking about what it's like to ramp back down and go into a competition. So to just sort of set the stage for the topic, I think maybe one of the easiest examples to give is when an athlete comes from, especially a super young athlete, from program hopping or another program, really wants to be coached. They're used to 3-4 Metcons a day, couple of lifts. Everything is random, sort of all over the place. It's this program with that program, or I had a coach, but I also love the Instagram WODs that I see, that sort of thing. These are pretty common themes that we see when an athlete at a higher level gets started with us. And I would say we take the volume down. We definitely direct it somewhere. We definitely say, like, this is what we're trying to accomplish with you during these times. We take the volume down, but I think we ask for more out of the athletes within the volume that we give them. Like, we provide the community behind the bitch work pieces. People know how hard they have to push in certain things. Obviously, maffetone is the type of stuff that takes up a significant amount of time for an athlete. And then things like, we have maffetone running right now. We're going to have it again in Comp Block 3 with mandatory running at least another day a week, if not 2 days a week. So you're talking about taking care of your feet and your ankles and your knees and your hips, all that different stuff. I'm sure it's triggered.
Sorry.
Twisting his foot around over here right now, talking about ankles.
What are those?
So
getting horny over there.
So while the volume is lower, I'm not sure that the CNS demand is actually lower. I think when you are directed at something and you are hitting some similar stuff over and over the course of 7 weeks, that central nervous system demand is probably still fairly similar. Because we do ask a lot. Again, we ask a lot of people within the volume. We ask for those proper warm-ups. We ask for people to have intention with each piece, not going through the motions. So I think that volume monster, there's too much of the 0 times 10 equals 0 going on within that. And we try to get athletes away from that. But part of that equation is from August through January into February, not touching really high volume essentially at any point at all. It can be more stressful depending on if, the heavier back squats fuck you up versus, having to do aerobic rowing every week. It's going to change a little bit for each athlete. And then depending on your caliber, how far you make it into the CrossFit Games season and or how often you compete every year, that's going to decide how often we ask athletes to actually go to that peaking schedule and that peak volume. So for people not following Misfit Athletics that are just listening to the podcast right now, depending on what week the athletes are in, they either have been through the most volume that they've done all year just a couple of weeks ago, or they're headed towards that either this week or next week. That's going to be the majority of everybody following. The people that are following the blog have, I think right now we're on pick 4.
Yeah,
I believe we're in that neighborhood and we're sort of going back down. So with that stage set, I want to know where you guys' minds go immediately when you're thinking, we clearly overreached. We took it too far on purpose. We go there just to say, okay, this is the type of volume that you might have been doing before. And we're still asking everything of you within that volume. This is that volume that was too much with intention. And there's a reason why that's potentially only 2 weeks out of the entire year. So once that's happened, as we're coming back down, what are the first things that pop into you guys' head for a listener to say, okay, this is how I'm working with my athlete, or this is how I would want you to be thinking about it as
we've peaked and we go back down?
And we're starting to come back down.
So for what I've been doing is I basically, when we started, so Kelly, for example, when we started our kind of like when we found out what week she was, we lined up the peaking schedule to taper her into her semifinal. But a lot of it, I think a lot of it comes down to like, so I gave her a handful of coaching notes for each week, kind of like, here are the focal points. Hey, you're doing like all of these are Metcon resets, like get used to it. You're going to be doing that for the first like 5 weeks of the program. It's a little bit more, there's a little bit more explanation. And then what I'll do is like, there is the expectation of, this is competition prep for, this is your seat. Like this is your season. This is about to be your Super Bowl. It's going to determine how much longer the season goes. But there were also some key elements that we were like really looking to aggressively attack. So, I won't get into like the specifics, but I would also give her the red cell of death, which is like a couple days per week. One of those training pieces is highlighted in red, and it's like, this is the one, like you need to be like game plan, figure out you're gaming it to get the best, either you're gaming it to get the best score possible as if it were an event, or here is something that we've been working on. It's in this piece. I want you to like, your goal is to hold X pace on this machine, kind of with the intention of, really attacking that component of the piece. So, that's kind of on the way up. On the way back down, we're starting to think about things a little bit more from like getting into that mindset of competition, and a little bit more of like, hey, you have 5 weeks of a pretty serious kick in the nuts behind you. At the beginning of week 1, when we were saying, hey, remember Metcon resets, you're trying to be the athlete that with that rest period injected into the Metcon reset, I want you to run that, go at the pace that you want to be at in 6 weeks. And it's like, now that we're on our way back down, it's like, hey, you're here. Like a lot of times we forget about that. It's like, you are now the athlete you wanted to be 6 weeks ago. You are that person. So now it's dedicating a little bit of, it's kind of using that confidence. And a lot of it is more mindset based. It's like, you've done the hardest stuff is now behind you. In the most physically demanding stuff is now behind you. Now it comes time to be thinking about the mindset stuff, the confidence, the, paying attention to the paces and all those sorts of things. So it's a little bit more of all right, like that's it. Like we're just about out of the woods here. So really start to think of yourself, the visualization, like, where do you want to end up at the end of the weekend? Visualize what it's like to hear your name and get on, be on the podium, like that sort of thing. Like those things are kind of what we're now redirecting to, now that we're coming kind of back down the volume schedule.
I think the theme for me right now is recalibration. Sort of like you just said, be the athlete you want to be by the end of the training phase, getting yourself ready for your semifinal. As we've gone through the higher volume, we've set new limits on what our body is capable of. And moving forward, the idea behind recalibration is you're either thinking about pieces now that you are a fitter human being and how you should approach them versus maybe how you would have approached them 6 weeks ago. And then second of all, thinking about what are the things that are now available to you now that you're not training for 5 hours a day. Those extra bits of time should be put into recovery and reflection so that you can actually gain the most you can from these pieces. So while I do need an athlete to go through Hell Week to overreach, I now need them to take that same energy they use to overreach to try to get their body to compensate from that overreaching so that when they go to their semifinal, they're feeling as good as they can. And in the conversation I had with Holly, actually a couple days ago, was about that exact topic. It's like, you're now going to feel almost like itchy, like there's more to be done. And it's, that anxiety looms over you that you have something impending on you and you feel like you should be doing X, Y, and Z more. And it's like, no, you should need to take all that energy and anxiety that's floating around you outside of your training and try to push that into your training so that you can continue to do your best on every single piece, knowing that with fewer opportunities, the amount of juice you got to squeeze from that like lemon is even harder now. So I think recalibration would be kind of the theme that I'd be talking about with an athlete as we kind of come back down the hill.
Yeah. The other thing is that you kind of mentioned it is even like throughout Hell Week, obviously athletes are incredibly beat up. And I said, hey, you should expect to feel like shit even through this like following week, not starting to feel like more normal.
Yeah, you get a rest day.
Yeah, you get like a rest day, and then the volume is a little bit lower than it was before. Like, but as we start to go back down, it's also important like to remember that in Hell Week and even the week after, like you might not you're not going to be feeling all that great. Maybe all the improvements that we've made, all the physical adaptations that we've made aren't, you're still recovering. They're not quite ready to be presented to the world yet. But as we get closer to the competition, it's important to, I guess, recalibrate is a good way to think of it. It's like, hey, 4 weeks ago, this was your sustained pace. And now when we get another training piece that presents that opportunity, it's like, hey, we need to dial in a little bit more what you're actually capable of hitting, so that when we see the workouts get announced, we have a much more accurate representation of where you're at. Because a lot of times athletes won't do that. They'll go through this, a crazy peaking schedule, whether it's with us or they just beat themselves up with somebody else. But if they don't ever kind of recalibrate and reassess and redetermine exactly where they are now at as they go into their competition, that means that, there's the potential for either points left on the table, or you did something that you weren't actually capable of yet, and that also set you back. So, and I would say that's probably more on the coach than or it's equally on the coach as it is on the athlete to make sure
Coach has to be very clear in what the instructions for the intention is.
Sure.
Yeah, for the two teenagers I have getting ready for their online semifinal ahead of trying to go to the CrossFit games, I'm sure they're probably annoyed at this point, but every single time they have, one of our bitch work pieces, it's like, text me. It's like basically the only instruction in their cell outside of our normal, it should be the sustained pace is your 10K, this is your 5K, whatever. But I asked them to text me, and that's because I constantly want them thinking about that. And oftentimes through our conversation, we realize that we are establishing baselines based on previous fitness, not current fitness. So, the recalibration is so important there, because in order to continue to get adaptation, you have to keep getting things to make things more challenging. If your old back squat PR was 315 and you PR'd at 405, you don't use 315 for your percentage work anymore. The same thing goes in line with all of your conditioning pieces in your bitch work. So, I think the conversation that needs to happen between athlete and coach is both informative to the athlete because they're learning more about their body, but it also helps the coach continue to have checks and balances with that athlete. There'll be straight up and honest that sometimes I'll give the girls paces that aren't realistic to hold, but I want them to think that they can get close to that. And oftentimes if we meet somewhere in the middle, we're at the pace that I hope they would be at, 6 weeks ago, but they still have something to chase there. And I think that's an important thing here, is the coach is always kind of like sprinkling the breadcrumbs on where they're going to go next. And through that constant conversation, we're figuring out all right, maybe the line for this athlete's at 90 seconds and they fall off big time. Maybe this athlete, it's 3 minutes and they fall off big time. So recalibrating week to week ensures that we're, again, getting all the juice we can out of that orange.
All right, Misfits, just a quick break to shout out our show sponsors and save you a little bit of dough on our favorite products. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Sharpen the Axe. It is semifinal season for a lot of our sponsored athletes right now. If you head to sharpentheaxeco.com and use their name as the discount code, Carol and Paige and Austin and all these different athletes, you'll know from their social media. It's really important right now that you're using their codes. They got a lot of travel coming up. Ease that burden for them. Show them some love so that those athlete bank accounts can go up. Sharpentheaxeco.com. Use your favorite athlete code.
We are also brought to you by Proper Fuel. You can head to properfuel.co. Use the code word Misfit to save on your order. Little known fact about both the pre-workout and the post-workout. It's a little ingredient we like to call sodium.
Boom.
It's getting really hot this time of year. Sweating a lot. And if you notice in the podcast that I took my sweatshirt off, got the pit stains going, I'm definitely bleeding some electrolytes right now. So again, if you take pre-workout, mix that with 16 ounces of water, do your workout, then hit the post-workout. Again, 16 ounces of water. You are getting all of the electrolytes you need to refuel and recharge for your next training session. Again, head to properfuel.co. Use the code word Misfit to save on your order.
And if you want to follow, celebrate, Sharp did it.
Good times coming up.
We're out of here. And if you want to follow the program that all of these spectacular athletes that we've been talking about in the first half of the podcast, mostly Sherb and Drew, you can head to misfitathletics.com. Get your free 2-week trial there or in the SugarWOD marketplace. Or if you're an affiliate, coach, or owner, you like what we're here. What? You like what you're hearing? Well, we apply all the same kind of training principles, just in the appropriate dose for your average everyday affiliate. And starting today, we are in baseline training phase 2. So not too late to get your athletes on that program. It's a 6-week phase. We're doing lots of clean and jerks. We're doing lots of push-ups. We're doing lots of pull-ups just in time for Murph prep. Jacked, yoked. Beach season is coming. Head to teammisfit.com for your affiliate programming or the SugarWOD marketplace there as well. All right, back to the show.
Yeah, if the coach or the athlete just on their own hopes that the athlete IQ is going to go up, that's one of those like shit in one hand and hope in the other and see which one fills up first.
Billy Bob Thornton.
And that's a huge red flag for the maturity level of more on the coach than the athlete, but both, is this idea of human beings like to have ideas that they hold in their own brain and they feel sort of elitist because they know and you don't. And the reality of it is, how the fuck are you supposed to know something that you don't know? And how is your athlete supposed to know something that they don't know if you don't teach them? So you're sort of taking them to class in this sense.
I want to be confident, and I have to get that confidence through learning. So again, I'm probably annoying in this regard, but I never give the answer when they ask the question. I'm not like 1100, period, send the text. It's, what do you think you should hold?
Right.
Do you remember this piece and that piece and this piece?
Right.
And if we don't have those conversations, they don't connect the dots. And again, you don't want to just lead the horse to water. You want to, teach it to drink too. So that's important to me, is that when I get them there, this isn't just a single, fire off 1100 calories per hour. It's all right. Think about this, think about that. How are you going to feel after this round? How are you going to feel after that movement? And that's really important, because again, my job is to help educate them so that when they're on the floor and I'm screaming from the sidelines, you don't hear me. Maybe you do if you're very lucky, but you're just thinking back to all your prior experiences and how your body feels and how, last time you were in the shit, what did you do?
Right.
And for me, it's important they develop that on their own, but I can help them in that regard. And that's what I want them to realize, is that I'm not trying to just be this annoying guy. It's like, all right, tell me what you think. I want those wheels turning, and part of my job is to make sure I'm getting you to think on the floor or think on the fly so that you can call upon those things when necessary.
Yeah, and it's a maturity level thing, I think, on the coaching side, and then it's a vulnerability thing on the athlete side. If you're listening to this and you're just one of those athletes, it's like, I never know what paces to hold. I never know. You gotta ask. You gotta ask your training partners, your peers, coaches. Ask the expert, kind of a situation. Discord.gg/Misfit Athletics. We're talking about that stuff every single day. Everyone is talking about that every single day. And if you learn to get into that mode, that's when you can really get into this stuff. And one thing that's interesting that popped into my head that's happening right now within the Misfit community is this Metcon reset versus Metcon. Most people have come back around in their training, unless they're week 3 or week 4 athletes. They are done with their resets. And we're getting two sort of narratives going on. One narrative is, holy shit, that Metcon was crazy. Probably because when that first week when you go back to Metcons, you're essentially the same driver in a car with a new engine, and you got to figure out what that means, right? Like you're, going around the parking lot learning with your parents, and you're jamming on the gas and then you're jamming on the brakes, and you're trying to figure out how to equalize this. Yes, you are fitter. We can tell that you've pushed in that way. You are ready for it physically, but we got to connect the dots. We got to create that bridge between physical and mental so that okay, in the reset, I was at 1,200 calories per hour. In the regular Metcon, I used to be at 1,100, and now I can probably push 1,175 or something in that range. And then on the other side, the narrative has become, because people are comparing scores that are doing different workouts, I can't imagine if that wasn't a reset, is the other narrative that we're hearing. The funny thing is, you can't imagine it because of how hard you went. I can imagine it because I gave you 30 seconds to rest.
Water break.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, no offense to CrossFitters out there, I've seen you take 30 seconds of rest before. Like,
come on.
That quick chalk that you took was not 10 seconds.
Yeah, when you're late into a real dirty muscle overload long piece, 30 seconons, please.
Yeah.
You've done it.
My rest starts.
Yeah. You've already
starts.
sort of gone there and done that. Yeah, I mean, I think about this stuff very similarly, not unsurprisingly to you guys when it comes to sort of coming back down in that direction. For me, the idea of harnessing the emotions and turning them into something that we can use is a really powerful theme. I think all athletes at a high level are a little fucked, like a little twisted in their brain. You wouldn't be able to go in and put in that level of work and get to where you're at without something being different about you to get there. Now, the issue is these heightened emotions, these powerful emotions that give a shit, the gas tank that we're asking for from athletes. We can take those emotions and we can send them in a bunch of different directions. You know what I mean? You can have the highest level of buy-in and the highest level of give a shit, and you can direct that into driving you into a hole, right? So these athletes who go to the CrossFit Games that first time, they don't do very well, and they just get wrapped up in, that's my new identity. Doesn't matter how I did in the Open, doesn't matter how I did in quarterfinals, doesn't matter how I did at semifinals. My identity when I get to the CrossFit Games somehow magically is I'm coming in 38th because 39 and 40 withdrew or whatever, that sort of thing. And that sort of energy can turn into reality. It can really put you there. And it's like, okay, so if we know that the athlete cares that much, how do we then turn that into fire, right? And we have a lot of examples that create the bridges that we're trying to have. So we have athletes who are amazing at putting incredible amounts of energy into a barbell single rep. We have athletes who are amazing at just holding this like insanely uncomfortable pace for 20 or 30 minutes. Those skill sets that they have in the gym can be translated back into their mindset. I don't want to hear it that this is the narrative that you've created because I just watched you do a physical representation of something that's the exact opposite. And creating those bridges for athletes and showing them, I just watched it. I just saw this out of you. I saw the right level of passion, ability, skill, strength, endurance, whatever it is. Let's take that thing that's actually happening in real life, drive it over the bridge, and have it land in your like mental state. We're over here. We're talking about where your mind is at right now. We've got some realistic data points over here, and let's rewrite the narrative. It's awesome that you give a shit. Let's just send it into that right direction. And I think as we're coming back down, these things that take up the spaces in between pieces should have a lot to do with that. How am I feeling right now? Like Hunter said, am I visualizing? Am I getting ready for? Am I checking off my boxes for sort of travel situations and all of that? You know, that battery meter is still getting drained down a little bit. You're probably just not as sore the next day as you were during Hell Week.
Yeah, the thing that was going through my mind as you're talking about that, Drew, is like Sophie and her like lead up to her semifinal. You know, one of the things that she's kind of held as a weakness for a long time, she's like, if it's low skill and just about an engine, I'm going to do terrible, and keep pouring in the idea of like, you continue to work on the things you need to be working on, which for her is a lot of math sessions, not a lot of barbell work, and see how you come out the other side and prove to yourself that you do have that, you know, grit and that gear. And no better representation was of event 2 from the AGOQ online quarterfinal, where they had that chipper that had the lunges and the burpees and the muscle ups and the pistols. And, you know, if you'd asked her going into the weekend, you look at those 5 events, what's one of the worst ones you're going to do? And she probably picked that one as like the worst she would do the entire weekend, and she won the workout. So, you know, the connections being drawn between, look how much effort you've put into something. And when you know, think of it from the perspective of like, all right, I'm just going to get to work, versus like, oh God, this sucks kind of thing. You know, she saw that workout, that 12-minute workout, and just said, I'm just going to get to work. And she was able to take the fitness she's garnered from all of those math sessions, learning how to control her heart rate and how much her headspace controls how she feels when she executes said piece. She's able to find peace of mind through Maffetone after, essentially being desensitized it for a few weeks. The first few weeks were a little bit rough. She would say same thing about it. But as she continued to do it, she started to see the benefits and see the benefits and see the benefits. And all of a sudden it went from, I hate doing math to like, that's the session I look forward to the most across the week. And what that's led to now is, all right, yeah, it's just more fitness. And if I have a positive outlook going into this event, Maffetone or event 2 of the quarterfinals, I'm going to do better on it. And, going into the weekend, I wasn't necessarily nervous about that event, but I was like, all right, this is going to be a challenging one. Lots of burpees, lots of transitions, not a chance to like really, show off skills. She's very proficient with a barbell. She's got a lot of gymnastics, but she also has an incredible amount of fitness that she didn't believe in yet until she had the opportunity to prove it to herself. Now, when we have those same conversations about a piece impending on us, like, oh, look, this is coming up. I'm worried about this. What should that pace be? We can draw upon recent history and go, look how much fitter you've gotten. Use that information moving forward and realize how much your headspace affects your ability to execute on the floor, which I think is a really important part of what you said about Kelly is like, you want them visualizing these things because it becomes second nature. And then it doesn't create this like cascading effect of anxiety or self-doubt that could poison an athlete in the weekend. Like you said, you might have one bad event and you have a decision then. Does it get a race and you move on to the next 4 events, or does that dictate the rest of your weekend? And we want athletes that can compartmentalize one bad event or one bad movement and go, that's fine. I got 4 of the things I can crush after this. So I think it's a really valuable point. That's kind of lesson that's been learned across this season for her.
I think it's a main reason too why success and growth within this space specifically is not linear, because a lot of the actual physical adaptations do present themselves as linear, but you just talked about someone not going into a workout believing that they were going to do well in it, coming in first place. What does that athlete do in a similar event when they know that? Like when you release that alter ego that we get to see within the lifting and we get to see within this gymnastics piece, which still a fitness test, gonna throw it out there. We'll just let that hang in the air for a second. Like when you take that athlete that has had those physical adaptations and then prove something to themselves, and then that athlete gets to go again with that belief, that's when that curve starts to skyrocket. You have an athlete who has made the physical adaptations, which almost all of you listening are continuously doing, and then you match up a mindset that can sort of handle all that. Oof.
The buy-in was huge, and I think powerful. That's a nod to our training camp that we had leading up to quarterfinals was, the opportunity to be around like-minded individuals and see the power. I've really looked to like someone like Paige, who spoke quite a bit as the athlete at that camp, just talking about like what she thinks of and how she approaches things. And I saw an immediate uptick in both the teenage athletes that I work with on that like mental side and that confidence thing through understanding that like, yeah, of course, things are going to be hard. They're supposed to be harder. We're not going to get any better. They're supposed to be difficult. But if you can go in there with like the suffer mindset of like smile and endure, like you're going to do a lot better because you're after something that's going to be challenging to get, and accepting that fact and then going, I don't care that's going to be hard. I'll figure out a way to get better at this certain thing. And, I think that like uptick, exponential growth can happen. And sometimes you just need an event or you need to be around the right people to have that happen. But when it does finally happen, you see these monumental leaps in athletes that, you think you take years to develop are now within a phase.
It's kind of unique because the number of the amount of data that, we talk about and that CrossFitters can have, and we record weights and times and splits and whatnot for all of that data. CrossFitters do a pretty good job of underestimating themselves and just like it becomes more difficult to identify like progress in fitness when it's like when your primary metrics are 1 rep maxes or split times and stuff like that. It's a little bit more difficult to objectively identify like broad and inclusive fitness.
Yeah, people don't go into those unsafe places in workouts.
Yeah, and the one thing that we've been working on is the idea of like the imposter syndrome. It's like I accidentally qualified last year and it turned out that I was the 10th fittest person at MAC, and it's like, oh, that's that's not that far from like 5th place. There is
carry the 6.
There's there's a bit of, there obviously the closer you get to that top 5, the curve starts to get a little bit steeper, but it's like the getting rid of the imposter syndrome. And I suspect a lot of athletes getting ready for a semifinal feel that. It's like I did the open, I did okay. I did my quarterfinals, and I mean, maybe I'm in the bottom half or something of my semifinal, but it's like, that's not nothing. That's pretty fucking significant. And especially, outside of like the few outliers, like the field is relatively tight. Like, and again, thinking about each individual workout, I could, if athletes are scrolling through the syndicate workouts and being like, that's not a good movement, that's not a good movement. It's like we tell that to Kenzie, it was the Kenzie thing. It's like, man, I'm really not very good at muscle ups. Like, I'm going to do 4 sets. And it's like, well, good news. It's not a muscle up workout. It's a fitness workout. Right. And, while certain workouts obviously may be geared to test certain elements, there haven't been too many instances that I can think of in like legitimate CrossFit competition where it was so unbalanced that the wrong people, that the fittest people did not move on to the next level. It's a test of fitness, and kind of getting out of that mindset of like, that's not a good workout for me because of that. It's like, well, odds are if there's something you're not good at in that workout, there's also probably something that you're very good at in that workout. And trying to get rid of that kind of, I get negative mindset sounds so simplistic, but
I think that's part of being the thermostat, as you've talked about before. Sure. And the opposite side of that conversation is you get athletes who are in the zone and they're like, this one's pretty good for me. And then they just keep saying it. And you're like, can we stop? No shit. Yeah. You're going to a CrossFit competition. You're one of the best CrossFitters in the world. Yeah. So turns out you're going to say that on probably 80-90% of the workouts. That's when you're in a pretty good spot. The one of the themes with one of my athletes for preparing this year was the robes do not make the monk. And I don't want to, I've changed my tune on this quite a bit. The athletes that are out there that have made a name for themselves and get paid $50,000 to $150,000 a year for their Instagram profile. They worked their ass off to get that. They were intelligent and, they really put an effort into that. And then the companies who then grab onto that and maybe put them out there a bit more in their newsletters or do whatever, that name draws more attention. They get more readers. It's more advertising money. Like the idea that it's unfair that certain people get more attention, I think is short-sighted, right? But if your ultimate goal is not to make a certain amount of money per year in CrossFit, but to be the absolute best athlete that you can be, this idea of the robes do not make the monk is so incredibly important. So we could be talking about Instagram followers. We could be talking about sponsors. We could be talking about body fat percentage, height, weight, whatever it is. These things that have absolutely nothing to do with what work did you put in, okay? Rewind, hit the rewind button. It's like one of those movies where they like go backwards to send you to a place. Hit the rewind button and take a minute and rewind through. I can't do the months backwards. I'm not going to be able to. But August and September and October, November, December, like rewind all the way back and think about all of that work that you've done. Physical, mental, recovery, the way you eat, the way that you slept. That is what makes the monk. That's what makes the athlete. The things that you do make the athlete. Now, you need to transfer those into your confidence and where we're directing that energy, because a lot of times those people who have built themselves up in that way professionally get so much of a confidence boost, they might fuck around and, do 5-10 spots better than they should based on their fitness level. So what you can learn from them is, okay, they've built up the confidence. That's one piece of this puzzle, but it's not the whole thing. So that imposter syndrome of looking to your left and looking to your right, unless they've got a fucking list of what they did in the last year, I don't want to hear it. There is no imposter. The only imposter that's there is, I don't know, someone that cheated on somehow figured out a way to cheat on their video, which I don't like, feels like such a thing of the past.
Yeah, that's kind of along those same lines. It's convincing, the convincing of yourself that you belong on that floor, and that in a lot of ways, a lot of athletes go into events like that, in-person events in particular, and are just like, I'm here to like, oh, I'm going to chase so-and-so. And there's obviously a place for that. Like people have a general idea of the hierarchy of fitness, but there's also, I would say more often than not, people are instead of chasing something, I think the mindset has to be reversed of like, I'm pulling these people along with me. Like you're going to keep up with, I'm not keeping up with you, like you're keeping up with me. And obviously knowing who is your left and who you're right, and how to play that to your advantage and whatnot is super important. But especially for athletes, chomping at the bit to be in that top 5, I think it's a fool's errand to be saying like, I just want to be in the top 5. It's like, I don't know. I'm always kind of like you want to be like 5th place? Okay, we're shooting for top 3, right?
Lucas shoot for the stars, land on the moon.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think there's a lot to be said for that. But the idea, especially if you are vying for one of those spots, it's like you have to recognize that you are one of those people that everybody else is looking at and should be a little bit scared of. And I want them to fear. I want them to be thinking, okay, I'm going to try to keep up with that person.
Right.
It's like, good. Like you won't. And for my athlete, it's like, no. You can look to your left and your right and see where everybody's at, but you're responsible for setting the pace, not for cruising alongside, the pace boat.
Right.
You ever wonder why those elite athletes aren't always posting everything they do every single day? They don't want you to know. They want you to be so afraid of what they are doing to get ahead of you that they don't have time to post that shit to Instagram.
Right.
They want you thinking about that. So if you're someone that's so obsessed with like showing everybody what you do every single day, like a lot of that energy could be redirected to help you get to where you want to be. And again, this is the going back to being in love with like the process rather than the destination kind of thing. Like this is something where you want an athlete and so entrenched in what they're doing and what they're trying to prove to themselves that they're so obsessed with that stuff. They don't have time for all that noise, what other people are doing, what program they're on, all that stuff. They're just so hyper focused on themselves. And that's something that takes a little bit of while to instill, because again, like you said, people get sponsorships, they get money, they go on trips, they get this, that. But the ones that end up finding a career to this thing, found it through their hard work, not through like, look at me, look at me, look at me.
Yeah. So I've got 2 nuts and bolts things left. Before I get to that, it's just really important to bring the listener back into the podcast. I've had this conversation way too many times in my career, but I've had it twice in the last week. I won't name names, but I've talked to 2 separate athletes who improved in quarterfinals in their respective divisions by over 200%.
It's okay, I guess.
Surface level, neither before the conversation with me willing to admit that their fitness improved. This was wheelhouse. This was blah, blah, blah. Listen, one workout having a big improvement, okay, maybe the movement that you didn't like last year got taken out and something got put in here. Your massive weakness is gone, whatever. If we're stretching that out across 5 events, and obviously as coaches, we know that there was some pretty good balance to those events. What are we talking about here? I'm confused. I don't understand.
Some bad maths.
Yeah, we got some bad math going on there. And the reason I want to bring this up for the listeners is, again, this like where your mindset is and your give a shit is. I know that the best of you are not satisfied no matter what at the end of quarterfinals, the open, maybe it's semifinals coming up. But you're not satisfied because you are the type of person that is not going to be satisfied. You cannot attribute that to I'm not good. You immediately, your mindset going to, man, I wish I was better here. I wish I was better there. Congratulations. You're that motherfucker. You're that person, right? if you, again, take that same energy and say, I'm unsatisfied because I'm not very good, you might just make that true. You might be able to send yourself to a place where that's not true. So the best of the best are still having these conversations. They're still having these doubts, and we are doing our absolute best on our end to direct that energy into what's going to get them where they want to go.
I had that conversation with a few of our affiliate athletes who quarterfinals athletes at the end of quarterfinals. There is more often than not, there are disappointed faces rather than and when we're much more sensitized to the negative things, the things that go wrong are amplified so much more than the things that go well. And it's like, well, how, like, and it was like, I didn't do very well this year. It's like, well, that's the least objective thing I've ever heard you say. So let's elaborate on that a little bit. Like, what does that actually mean? It's like, well, I didn't do as well in this. And then you pull up the data and it's like, well, you moved up like on average, like, I don't know, like a few hundred places, few thousand in some instances. It's like how can you people don't, it's kind of, it pisses me off a lot. Too many people
grinds my gears.
It really grinds my gears is that people will avoid at all costs using objective metrics to make like assessments of their ability level, and more often than not they do it at their own disservice. It's like, I didn't do very good this year in the open. It's like, well, what does that mean? Like, well, I don't know, I feel sad. It's like, great, that's useless. So let's look at the metrics. Let's say
I'd love to listen.
Sign up, free 30 first session's free. But it's like, but then you pull the like, okay, here's your last year, here's your this year, and it's like, well, that looks like an improvement to me, and that's pretty objective. And as a matter of fact, that's the most objective like metric that we have. And if we're all doing this whole competition thing, and we're gonna, kind of buy into the idea, the CrossFit's idea of finding the fittest person on earth, which seems to be working pretty well so far. Like, it's okay to say like, I still need to improve X, Y, and Z, but don't do that at the disservice of, oh, well, I improved A, B, and C. I just need maybe now I can put a little bit more work into those other things. And if it's the exact same thing, if it's like, yep, I sucked at this last year, I suck at this year, then there's another objective and valuable data point that says like, okay, maybe I need to double down on my effort to improve this. If something else, quote, became a weakness, but you got fitter, all that says is like all the weaknesses that you addressed from the previous season and that you worked on are no longer such a weakness that something else fell below that, like, whatever your threshold for a strength is.
I thought it was interesting too, Drew. You said, I can't remember where the conversation, I think it was when the athletes up for semifinal weekend, but like the relative weakness relative to other things that you are good at can feel like they're so far behind, but you're still really fucking good at them. It's like, I suck at the C2 bike. I can only hold 150 for 4 hours. It's like, that's pretty fucking good. It might not be the same level that everything else is, but like we can fix that. But you can obviously easily talk yourself out of doing it. The product
of the reality multiplied by how much you care gives you what you think is your reality. And it's like, no. We're gonna change that. Last two sort of nuts and bolts things with coming back down the mountain when we are prepping, and this might be counterintuitive to certain people who have followed other programs. The 2 weeks leading up to your competition, so the week of the competition, the week before the competition, is the lowest volume you will probably do almost the entire year. We stop, depending on how much time we have, 3 to 4 weeks out. We're going to be at that peak volume, and then we start to come back down. You are preparing to go insanely hard twice a day for 3 days. The idea that you should go kind of hard 4 times a day for 3 days is not the skill that you are trying to develop, especially for semifinals. We can have a discussion about where the slider goes on that spectrum for the CrossFit Games, but it's not what we're talking about right now. And even then, it's not the totality of the volume is a lot, but it's not as much as you'd think if you sat down and really sort of broke it apart. So when you are 2 weeks out from a competition, you are impeccable with your warm up and your activation. And, oh man, I want I went a minute at a higher intensity at the end of my 15-minute warm up, and that just felt so much better, or that felt worse. I'm going to stay at this. When I floss my ankles and I do double unders, I feel like a totally different athlete. Like, I mean, voodoo floss on the shoulders. You see some athletes just can't believe what it does. That's where it got its name from.
Unbelievable.
Magical.
So you are impeccable with your preparation. You know exactly what the workout is. It's not the time where you go, oh, I think I'll have to look again. I think it's 200 meters and then 12 handstand push-ups. I don't know, something like that. Fuck that. That week, you're going into the gym. That shit is seared into your brain. You know what it is. I know what my paces are going to be. I know how close my rower is going to be to the wall. I'm making these transitions, you know, all of this stuff, we narrow in and we take that same amount of effort, that same battery pack that we've had that we keep recharging, and we focus it in on these details. And we go through and we really, really warm up for a strength session. You are ready for, like, we could right now go to that 90% single and you'd be absolutely fine. We're going to start you at 76.28%, whatever it is, at, 5 reps. But if you wanted to, you could do basically any portion of this. That means you are ready for what we are about to do. The cool down is there. You're doing your breathing exercises after your lift so that you're getting your central nervous system back down. Cool down is exactly where it needs to be. You're hitting your macros. You've got meals planned out. All of this different stuff. You are getting into the zone in a completely different way starting that 2 weeks out. You are locked in. You've already had your conversations with everybody around you. Hey, I'm fucking locked in. You might ask me a question and I might not hear it. I might just keep cruising. You know what I mean? Like, no, you cannot ask me a question during my math bike. Like just things of that.
Check it on your breathing real quick. That's all.
Yeah,
Check it on your breathing.
Just things of that nature, really becoming completely dialed in. Getting yourself to a place where you know that warming up, crushing, cooling down, taking a break, warming up, crushing, cooling down, taking a break is the skill that you're trying to have. Like, that's where we need an athlete at. And then that final week, we've got articles on this. We've got different podcasts on this. So I don't want to break that down too much. But we're really just making sure the nervous system is ready. The body's feeling really good. We're really dialed back on volume. We're going to make sure that your body's like, okay, that's a barbell and this is a heavy breath, like that sort of thing. Just one
heavy breath.
One heavy breath.
Not more than that.
That's why we do primer workouts in person. I literally just stand there and just go, stop. So we're really dialed in. We're really getting into that stuff. And that is really the total picture here. We've overreached, and then we're doing all this stuff that we just spent the last 30, 40 minutes talking about. That is how we believe the athlete is the best going into competition. And not to toot our horns, definitely to toot our horns, our athletes perform very well at in-person competitions that have had a peaking schedule where we're there. The entourage is there. We've got the vibe figured out with the athlete. It's right. So it's something that we take very seriously. It's something that we have fine-tuned. And, we believe in putting that information out to the world and letting people know. We want to see, we obviously want you to follow Misfit Athletics, but we want to see the best of the best out there kicking ass in our sport, top to bottom.
Details is all I hear from all that. And that's a really important thing this time of, leading up to your Super Bowl, which again, potentially earns you a ticket to a second Super Bowl right afterwards. So there's 2 Super Bowls in one season. The details matter. And again, we want athletes obsessed with that type of stuff. All the information you can gather or reflect upon becomes immensely valuable when you are in person and going through this, knowing that like there are going to be highs and lows across the entire weekend, but the experiences you had leading up to that weekend are what allow you to self-reflect and then kind of live in the middle, like you like to talk about as a coach and athlete, kind of working together so that you can perform your best. Riding too high, you might get cocky, make some mistakes. Riding too low, you start to have self-doubt. So living in the middle is what this is all about. And that all comes down to details in my mind. That was the least subjective thing I've ever heard.
I'm gonna come back to you.
You come back to me.
I kind of already had my final thoughts. But what I will say about this is I want to go back to the idea of the red flags of a coach who's not getting this information to you. You got the secret herbs and spices proprietary blend. They can't tell you what's in the blend. You just listen. Coach says, check the box. I'm done. I'm good to go. But on the athlete side, because I think we're talking primarily to athletes that are listening, be vulnerable. Put yourself out there. Figure these things out that we're talking about. We don't expect, the osmosis of the podcast. It permeates through your ear hole and into your brain, and you just all of a sudden your athlete IQ just went up 1,000,000 points. Put this stuff into practice. Have conversations with your peers. Go into Discord, have this conversation. Figure out what works best for you. And again, if you don't know something, just ask. I think we're really back to a really good place with our community where there is a hub and there is a place that people are having these conversations. Use that. Go in, ask the questions. Sometimes questions don't get answered. Ask them again. It could just be because you're posting at 3 a.m. and then it gets buried by another person. Sometimes you have to scroll back through to see what, where a question is. So if it's not answered, just ask again.
I think this is the time of year for athletes that the meter between kind of almost an arrogant confidence and a necessary humility starts to teeter towards that more Terminator-esque kind of feel, as especially in that last week, as you kind of taper in, you start, the travel stuff starts to take place, that you start to, it's like when you go on vacation, you're just or you have a vacation plan and you're like, oh, it hasn't really hit me yet until X date.
Right.
I think part of that, the switch, that we talk about so often, is the tipping of the scales over into that kind of confident arrogance that sounds negative, but it's, used correctly is a necessary element of that competitive mindset that you have to adopt and be willing to go there. That's not to say that, you need to be running around punching competitors in the throats before your heat.
I wouldn't mind watching that.
Maybe, but I'll watch. I'll defend. I'll put someone in armbar. I don't give a shit. But having that, tipping the scales a little bit more towards that, I've done the work. It just comes down to that confidence. I've done the work. I've done everything correctly. I've done the right things for my, I've got my coach here. I've got my, hopefully some friends or family or fans, whatever, members from your gym in the stands. And it's time to put that humility aside a little bit, to the point where you can really show kind of the world what you've been putting in as far as the work goes over the last few months.
Yeah, Bruce Wayne vibes. You're starting to get there. You don't put the bat suit on yet, but you're texting Alfred, and you're like, as you replenish my ninja stars, you get an oil change in the Batmobile. I'm about to put this thing on, get in, and launch out of that fucking cave at about 10,000 miles an hour. Your alter ego, you need to know who that person is. You need to know what works for you. Are you the silent killer? Are you, telling, doing the Hulk Hogan ear thing to the crowd? Who is that? You're identifying.
That's what I do.
And sort of dancing a little bit with that alter ego right now. You're finding out who that person is. And then come this Friday or next Friday, or the Friday after that, or the Friday after that, you put that fucking suit on, you get in the Batmobile, and it's full throttle, baby. Let her rip.
I'm surprised you don't do the Triple H thing. Just spray the water into the air. That seems
That's
like more
Austin's
your vibe.
thing.
That's more.
I'm so disappointed that his hair isn't 8 inches longer, so we can do that at a semifinal.
We do it?
We did it.
We're done.
All right, ladies and gents, thank you for tuning into another episode of the Misfit Podcast, and thank you to our show sponsors. You can head to properfuel.co and use the code word Misfit to save on the best pre- and post-workout supplements in the game. SharpenTheAxe.co.com. I'm going to throw a little curveball here. Use your favorite Misfit Athletes code to support their journey. Carol, Paige, Holly, Hunter. You know the names. You know your favorite. You can go in. Make sure you use their code. They get paid for that. Their semifinals journey, the burden of all the travel and all that good stuff is just lightened a little bit. And obviously, we are brought to you by ourselves. TeamMisfit.com for your affiliate programming needs. MisfitAthletics.com for your individual needs, or the SugarWOD marketplace for a free trial of either. We'll see you next week.